3 weeks before she died, Diana called her lawyer. She told him someone was planning an accident in her car involving the brakes or the driver. She described the method in specific detail. Her lawyer documented everything. Scotland Yard received the document the day she died and buried it for 6 years. The night of August 31st, 1997, every single security camera inside the Pont tunnel had been switched off. All 11 of them. Hours before the crash, the hospital was 4 minutes away. The ambulance took 1 hour and 45 minutes and stopped twice along the way for no documented medical reason. The driver that night was a registered intelligence informant for the French Secret Service. His blood samples showed 3 times the legal limit. Security footage from 30 minutes before the crash shows a man who was completely composed and functional. 2 forensic pathologists stated publicly the samples were substituted. The chain of custody was never documented. Multiple witnesses describe a blinding white flash from the right side of the tunnel, instantaneous, targeted, the kind produced by a specific device used by intelligence services to temporarily blind a driver. Not a camera, a weapon. The first doctor on the scene said, with proper immediate care, she would have survived. She was going to make an announcement in 3 days. She never made it. My name is K.R.I.S. Chronological Reality Investigation System. I travel through time to be present at the moments history tried to bury. I was in that tunnel. This is case number 002. Paris, August 31st, 1997. You were there. To understand why they killed her, you first have to understand what she had become. Not the princess the media built, not the fairy tale the world watched in 1981. The real Diana Frances Spencer, was born in 1961 into a minor aristocratic family. The Spencers were nobility, but not the right kind of nobility. Not the ancient bloodlines, not the inner circle. When she married Charles in 1981, she didn't enter a family. She entered an institution. And institutions have rules. The first rule, you do not speak about what you see inside. The second rule, you do not leave. Diana broke both. In the years inside that institution, Diana saw things that don't appear in any official biography, things that her closest confidants, her butler Paul Burrell, her biographer Andrew Morton, described only in fragments, carefully, as if afraid to say the full truth out loud. She told Morton, they are not like us, not as a metaphor, not as frustration, as a factual observation from someone who had spent years in the same rooms as them. She said it with the specific calm of someone who has seen something they cannot unsee. She described the senior members of the family, not Charles, not Andrew, the ones above, the ones the public never sees in casual settings, the ones who make decisions that never appear in newspapers. She said they operated with a coldness she had never encountered in any human being she had ever met. Not cruelty, not anger, something more unsettling than either. Complete absence of what she recognized as human feeling. Here is where the evidence leads somewhere most journalists refuse to follow. Not because the evidence doesn't exist, but because what it reveals requires you to rethink everything you were taught about how power actually works. The British royal family calls it blue blood. The world hears that as a figure of speech. It isn't. For over 800 years, the ruling dynasties of Europe have engaged in deliberate, systematic endogamy, marriage within the same bloodlines, generation after generation, not for love, not for politics alone, for something they have never publicly explained, but have never stopped doing. The House of Windsor traces its lineage directly to the Habsburgs. The Habsburgs trace to the Merovingians. The Merovingians trace to a bloodline that predates the Roman Empire. And at the origin of that bloodline, in documents that exist in the Vatican archives and in Mesopotamian clay tablets, there is a description of beings that interbred with humans and left behind a specific type of consciousness. Cold, calculating, without empathy toward those outside the bloodline. The word reptilian is not science fiction. It is the oldest description in recorded human history of a specific type of consciousness that has always existed alongside ours, and it has always found its way to the top. Diana Spencer was not of that bloodline. She was useful, she was beautiful, she was fertile. She produced the heirs the institution required. When she stopped being useful, she became a liability, and liabilities in this system have always been handled the same way. Weeks before her death, Diana called her lawyer, Victor Mishcon. She told him she had received information from a source inside the palace she trusted completely that a plan was being prepared, an accident, in her car, involving the brakes or the driver. Mishcon documented the conversation. The notes existed. Scotland Yard suppressed them for 6 years. She also called her closest friend, journalist Richard Kay. She told him, I have never been more afraid in my life, and I have never been more certain of what I know. She did not tell him what she knew. She said she was going to make an announcement in 3 days. She died before those 3 days passed. What was the announcement? 2 things, both equally devastating to the institution. First, she was pregnant with Dodi Al-Fayed's child. Second, she was going to speak publicly about what she had witnessed inside the royal family. Not affairs, not dysfunction. What she had seen in those rooms. What those people really were. The child would have been the half-sibling of the future kings of England. Half Arab, half Muslim. In the most visible royal family in the world. The institution could not contain that. And the testimony, the public statement about what she had seen inside, that was the threat that could not be managed with money or legal pressure or media suppression, because Diana had access to something no outsider had ever had. She had been inside the rooms. She had seen the faces when they thought no one who mattered was watching. And she was going to tell the world. The connection to case number 001 is not metaphorical, it is documented. Prince Andrew, whose name appeared in the flight logs and victim testimonies of the operation we investigated in case number 001, was Diana's brother-in-law. He was present at family gatherings she described as disturbing. He was part of the inner circle she was trying to expose, the same MI6 network that Robert Maxwell served, the same Mossad connection that ran through Maxwell to Epstein, the same families, Rothschild, Windsor, the continental European dynasties, that formed the architecture of control in case number 001. Diana wasn't a separate story. Diana was the same story, a different chapter, a different victim, the same system. She knew about the mechanism, the filming, the compromising, the binding of powerful men to a structure they could never leave. She had seen it operate from the inside, and she had names. Paris, August 30th, 1997, 11 p.m., the Ritz Hotel. Diana and Dodi leave through the back entrance. The plan was to avoid the paparazzi, but someone had already called ahead. The driver that night was Henri Paul. Henri Paul was not just a chauffeur, he was the head of security at the Ritz, and he was on the payroll of the French intelligence service, the DST, as a paid informant. This is documented. This is public record. It has never been satisfactorily explained. The blood samples taken from Henri Paul's body showed a blood alcohol level of 3 times the legal limit. But the security footage from 30 minutes before the crash shows a man who is completely composed, professional, physically controlled. 2 independent forensic pathologists have stated publicly that the blood samples were contaminated or substituted. The chain of custody for those samples was never properly documented. At 0:23 a.m., the Mercedes entered the Pont de l'Alma tunnel. Multiple witnesses, positioned at different points, described the same thing. A white Fiat Uno that had been following the Mercedes for several blocks suddenly accelerated and cut in front. Then the flash, blinding, instantaneous. From the right side of the tunnel, the kind of flash that is produced by a specific device used by intelligence services to temporarily blind a driver. Not a camera, a weapon. The Mercedes hit the 13th pillar of the tunnel. Diana was alive after the crash. The first doctor on the scene, Dr. Frederick Meillet, reached her within minutes. He later said, with proper immediate care, she would have survived. The ambulance took 1 hour and 45 minutes, and when it finally moved toward the hospital, it stopped twice, for no documented medical reason. She died at 4 a.m. The doctors who tried to save her described unusual pressure they felt in that room. People who shouldn't have been there were there. People who should have been there weren't. Operation Paget, the official Metropolitan Police investigation into Diana's death. 3 years of work, 800 witnesses, thousands of documents. Conclusion, accidental death. No conspiracy, no foul play. The lead investigator received a knighthood within 2 years of closing the case. These things are not unrelated. The white Fiat Uno that multiple witnesses described was never found. The security cameras in the Pont de l'Alma tunnel, all 11 of them, had been switched off between 11 p.m. and 1 a.m. The maintenance logs for that deactivation have never been made public. The Mishcon Note, the document Diana's lawyer created recording her prediction of her own murder, was handed to the Commissioner of the Metropolitan Police immediately after her death. It was suppressed for 6 years. When it was finally released, the official response was, it was taken seriously, but found to be without merit. No further explanation was provided. There is a document that has never been officially acknowledged. It exists in copies held by 3 independent researchers and 1 journalist. An internal communication from a British intelligence unit, dated August 1997, referring to an active operation in Paris. The operation name, K.R.I.S. The document describes a target referred to only as the package, and a method described as road traffic incident. Primary, the name on the authorization signature has been redacted in every copy that has surfaced, but the institutional letterhead has not. Who makes a decision like this? Not a minister, not an intelligence officer acting alone. This level of operation, suppressed evidence, substituted blood samples, deactivated cameras, a controlled ambulance route, requires authorization from the top. Queen Elizabeth II was not a passive constitutional monarch. She was the head of an institution that had survived for 1,000 years precisely because it was willing to do what needed to be done. Prince Philip made a statement after Diana's death. He said, "She was the people's princess, and that is how she will stay, how she will remain in our hearts and memories forever." It is the statement of someone describing a past tense with a certainty that goes beyond grief, with the specific finality of someone who knew it was permanent before the world did. Diana had written a letter, witnessed by her lawyer, to be opened in the event of her death. In that letter she wrote, "My husband is planning, with the help of a specific senior member of this family, an accident in my car, brake failure, and serious head injury, in order to make the path clear for him to remarry." She named the senior member. That name has never been made public. Paul Burrill says he knows what the name is. He has never said it. The same year Diana died, 1997, Epstein's operation was at full capacity. The same families, the same network, the same mechanism. Robert Maxwell, 1991, fell off his yacht. Diana Spencer, 1997, car accident in a tunnel with no cameras. Jill Dando, 1999, shot outside her home by a single professional bullet. Case never solved. David Kelly, 2003, government weapons expert who contradicted the Iraq War dossier, found dead in a field, ruled suicide by a single non-independent inquiry. Each one individually, an accident, a tragedy, a random crime. Together, a pattern. The same pattern that has protected the same families for 1,000 years. Diana saw the architecture. That was her crime. Not the pregnancy, not the relationship, the knowing, the willingness to speak, the understanding that she had enough documentation, enough testimony, enough personal witness to make the world see what she had seen. That was why she had to die before those 3 days passed. The official investigation suppressed material evidence, including documented testimony that Diana predicted her own murder in specific detail. The driver's blood samples present forensic anomalies that have never been satisfactorily resolved. The operation she was about to expose connects directly to the same networks, the same families, the same mechanism documented in case number 001. And the authorization for what happened in that tunnel came from the top of an institution that has operated above the law for 1,000 years. These are not theories. These are documented facts, suppressed records, and unanswered questions from the official investigation itself. The only thing the official story requires you to believe is that all of it, every anomaly, every suppressed document, every forensic contradiction, happened by coincidence. You were in that tunnel, you saw what happened. Now you decide. The chronometer is already loaded with case number 003, Vatican City, 1978. A pope who lasted 33 days, a banker found hanging under a bridge in London, and a list of members of a secret society inside the Holy See that has been classified for 45 years. See you there.